welcome to Dining with the Diva. This is Judy of divinacucina.com. I teach cooking and do culinary tours in Tuscany. I live out in Certaldo, about halfway through Siena and Florence in the Chianti hillsides. Today I wanted to show you one of my favorite recipes. I know a lot of people think risotto is really hard to make. So what we're going to do today is actually do two different recipes while I'm making risotto. What I tend to do is if I have something that takes a long time to make, like risotto really isn't a long time, it's about 20 minutes, I tend to use that time to make something else. So I'll just show you. We went to the market today and my husband Andrea was dreaming about getting some fresh peas. Okay, so this is what I made today. And this is in my cookbook and on my website. These are Florentine style peas. And I did them with green garlic and pancetta, so that's very Eastery. And the other recipe I did are these sweet and sour onions, cipollino agrodolce. So those are things I already did while I was prepping and getting ready to do class. Hi Emily, hi Mary James. So it's just 6 o'clock now. We'll wait a second, but I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to make today. I have asparagus growing in my garden, and today there were like these big five chunky ones already. So I thought that'd be really nice for a risotto dish. The other day I had some mixed ones and I put them in the frittata that I did. But I thought I'd make it a little fancier and something a little prettier kind of, and so I'm going to do it with saffron. So while we're waiting for other people to show up, I live in a region which produces saffron, and this is a little tube. Ciao Marta. I get saffron in. I actually have my own saffron bulbs someone gave me to grow my own, but sometimes the little animals eat them up before I get to get them. Saffron is one of the most expensive spices in the world because out of a bulb grows one flower, sometimes 2 or 3 flowers, but the stamens come up, and of the stamens you pick them and they get 3 little threads, and then they dry and they weigh nothing, so it's very hard work to actually do them. So what is a good idea if you want to get more essence out of your saffron, I know I'm going to make just for us for dinner tonight. We're just going to do like a risotto with 1 cup of rice, and I'll need double the water. So I'm just going to make my saffron water first. So I pre-boiled the water, okay, and I'm going to put the saffron in there. If you don't have saffron threads, you can, I'll show you what we have too at the grocery store. We can get some inexpensive saffron. And one of the things is, of course, you never really know how much real saffron. Since the old times, saffron was something that people cheated with and stole from. We buy these little envelopes, and you get 3 envelopes in a package, and I'll show you. Then this breaks apart here. We'll do both of these so you can just see then. This is already starting to turn yellow. And inside this package is a little package, and it has saffron powder. At the grocery store here, I can also get saffron threads and a little, let me see, I have a collection of my saffron things. This is empty. But I can get a little saffron, I don't have one right now, but in a little, about half this size, little plastic thing for like €5. And those are real threads from San Gimignano, which is about 10 miles from my house. So you see this little paper? This has saffron powder in it, okay? Just let me show you. There's a lot of fake saffron. There's marigolds and turmeric. There's things that make things yellow. So, can you see? Wait a second, I want to drop this. So this is what they say is saffron dust. Who knows? We'll see. Hi Dana. Ciao. So we'll see. I'm going to put this also in the hot water just to show you. We'll let that melt. This is a lot of saffron. But by letting it rest too, the threads will plump up and you'll see them nice. If you see how yellow that is already, it's going to make a really beautiful risotto. So while that's resting, I thought I would do what I usually do and do 2 recipes at once. My husband loves, and I love octopus. So I have a great recipe. I never really liked octopus when I was in America. I think I had it once. It was really good in Greece, where you're sitting on the beach and the guys are there and they're beating the octopus against the rocks, and then they come and they grill them for you and do shots of ouzo, which is really fun. But you're supposed to boil it in huge pots of water and have a cork floating in it. And there's all these tales of how to make your octopus tender. But I kind of have a secret recipe that I've discovered over the years. I'm going to take this pot like this, and I just covered the bottom with olive oil, and I have 2 garlic cloves and 2 little chili peppers in there. And then to get really tender octopus, I buy, these are small ones, these are frozen, and you can tell because they're kind of purple. If you had a fresh octopus, it would be like a dark brown. I'm going to turn the heat now on under this and get my oil hot. So they already came cleaned, which saves you seeing this, but this is where their eyes were. And then usually you cut those out. They sell it to the inside little brain things are already gone. And then underneath here, this is where the octopus has his mouth, okay? So there's like a little beak here. And so you would normally cut that out and cut the eyes out. Once the oil gets hot, I'm just going to drop these octopus down in there, and then their legs will curl up, and that'll make them fit better into the pot. And usually they say to do that in the boiling water like 3 times. And I just do this in the olive oil with garlic and chili pepper. The octopus, and maybe it's because they're frozen, give off a lot of water and makes a really beautiful octopus broth, okay? So as soon as this gets hot, this little package I got had 2 octopus and an extra head. So I'll do all 3 of these pieces. I like to eat the octopus cold the next day, or after I've cooked it once, I like to cut the little legs into pieces and then grill them to give them a little charcoaly kind of flavor. We do the cork too. Yeah, I think that it doesn't, I don't even use water anymore. So I think the cork, I don't know where that came from. Fisherman's tales. Okay, I can hear the garlic starting to spit right now. So I'll show you when I fill them back up. So let that just sit there for a minute. And those legs start to curl. You can see they're already starting to curl up. And then they start to change color. I'm holding it by the head. Can you see these really curling up now? I'm going to do both of these. It already smells good. Of course, it's garlic and olive oil, so it's not to smell good. Oh, fun. So yeah, this is the frozen artichoke, and I just defrosted it. And I find the frozen one, when you freeze octopus, it breaks down the muscles, and so it's definitely more tender. I was in Sicily a couple weeks ago, and we ordered an octopus salad, and I was so disappointed because it was really tough. They said, well, of course, Judy, we're using fresh octopus. I'm like, well, why don't you just cook it more? To me, the thing is, calamari, squid, octopus, cuttlefish, all that, it has a middle point where it's tough, but it's either cook it very little or cook it a lot, and it's really tender. So let me just get my things now. So you can see they're starting to curl up, and they're changing color. Okay, that's what I want. So it'll also give it more room in the pot here. I'll flip them over now to let the little head start cooking. And apparently there's 2 different kinds of octopus. There's ones that live on the rocks and ones that live farther out in the sea. The 1 minute or 1 hour rule. Exactly, Martha, yeah. So there's ones that have double suckers and ones that have single suckers. Okay. So now these are pretty much curled up, and they're not taking up that much room anymore. Let me just put that little head piece in there. And then this is my little mom trick. I don't have a pressure cooker, which I'm sure would also work really well. This is my Italian pressure cooker. I take 2 brown paper bags and put them over the top. And then I have a lid here, and this is my other Italian mama trick. you have a metal lid with a handle, if you put 2 corks, that's where you put your fingers to pick it up. Okay? So you won't ever burn your fingers. And I'm putting that on there now, and that's going to seal that. Okay? So this is going to take probably, these are small, those big octopuses will take about 45 minutes. I'm going to say this is going to take half an hour. Okay? So that's done. So what I'm going to do now is start my risotto. So when you're going to make risotto, you want to have the traditional rice, I think it's always backwards now on Facebook, is called arborio, but there's also other rices. There's canaroli and violone nano. And I got my real risotto lessons, after I moved here, from Gabriele Ferron, who has the Antica Pila Vecchia up outside of Verona, Isola Scala. And he said, never stir my rice. So it's kind of like a huge battle, yes and no, always or never. More towards Milano, they tend to stir the risotto and also then make it jump in the pan, saltare, risotto saltato. And he said, don't stir my rice because it'll fall apart. So I'm just going to cover the bottom of my pan with olive oil. And I used to be a vegetarian, so I'm not having chicken stock. I'm just having the water with saffron. And I'm gonna, with vegetables, I usually like to do a garlic. So I make like a garlic broth. Medium heat. I like high heat, but I'll turn it down. I have triple bottom pots, and I listen to it. I don't listen to music when I'm cooking because I need to listen to my pots. So the octopus is going to give off its own liquid, but I'll turn it down now to medium. But you want it to cook, okay? So for my risotto, I'll move this here. I'm just going to start with a base of sliced garlic. I really love garlic broth. In Mexico, they do a beautiful tortilla soup, which is chicken broth with sauteed garlic, and then they put fried tortilla strips in it, which is really nice. So I love that. So I'm just going to saute the garlic in olive oil, and I cover the bottom of the pot with olive oil. I forgot to get a measuring cup, just a second. So I got a rice at the grocery store today because I didn't have any of my special friends risottos. There's a lot of really good risottos from small farms in northern Italy. There's a lot of them come in cloth bags that are really nice, and I've seen there's one that comes in a coffee can, and that's usually an aged risotto, which is really nice. That's from Acquarello, I know that. So 1 cup of rice will become 2 cups of rice. And this is from Maremma. I don't know if you've ever heard of Maremma. It's the southern Tuscany region, which has both the mountains and the sea. And it's where we have our cowboys. So there's longhorn cattle, more of a meat culture than a pork culture. They have great recipes. There's, as a matter of fact, my friend Amika Davis just wrote a book called Aquacolta, so you might see that around in the bookstores. She and her husband used to live down there for a summer when he was a sommelier at one of the fancy places down there. But aquacotta is almost like America's stone soup. It's a soup made with what you can find. So when the cowboys were out with the cattle, they'd bring like a piece of pancetta with them, and that's it. They'd use what they would find in the ground. So in the hills around here, you can always find everything. There's always some wild greens. They could use dandelion greens. They could saute an onion with a little pancetta, and then put a big pot of water on to boil, and then add whatever they found. So there's, like when I'm driving up to my house, I can usually find wild asparagus. But there's wild greens, spinach, dandelion greens, anything that you find. You can cook it all together. Mushrooms, if you're up in the hills, you'd find mushrooms in the mountains. So they can make this beautiful soup, and then if they're lucky and you can enrich it, after this soup is made, you break a whole egg into it, and the egg poaches inside this soup. So I think it's a perfect brunch item. It's really lovely. So my garlic is just starting to saute. I want that to get a little flavor. And then what I'm going to do is start with the more dense part of my asparagus. So I'm going to cut off the part that was down by the ground. We planted about 10 plants, and they all come up at various times. So if you wanted to, you could actually peel these. If you have big fat ones, you can use a potato peeler and peel these. I don't think I need to. So I'm just going to chop these up into what would be a nice size to put on my spoon when I go to actually eat my risotto. And I'm going to leave the tips whole for later. I'm going to start sauteing these. So I'm going to have this beautiful garlic asparagus broth base, olive oil infused base to start my risotto with. And then I'm going to add the beautiful saffron and of course some beautiful sea salt. And that's going to be my beautiful risotto. It's going to be pretty and good. And then I'll give you a link underneath when I post this. I also did a really nice pumpkin in the fall, pumpkin saffron that's really nice. Okay, the garlic's really brown. I'm going to throw the rest of these in and let them start. This would be nice with zucchini, with peas. When you have something that's a little tougher, you can start it first. And then you always toast your rice. So I'm going to add the rice. So I get all that in there. That's 1 cup of arborio rice. And this is called toasting your rice. You stir it. Then all the little kernels get covered with oil. It's funny because my mom was raised in China, and she always told me like to rinse rice off first, and you cover it with water. And I remember the first time I ever saw somebody in Italy making rice, I told them they were doing it all wrong. We should just always be quiet and let somebody else show us what we're doing. Okay, so we start with garlic and olive oil, the little pieces of asparagus toasting, the rice. Now, when it's hot, to me that's perfect, and that's toasted. So for the 1 cup of rice now, see how beautiful my saffron water is? I'm going to add the saffron water with all the saffron. Stir it. I'm going to add some salt. Let me get that. I didn't bring it over here yet. So you can always just salt to taste. Remember, we're not using any stock or broth. So this is my stock. I have an asparagus saffron stock. Okay. So then we're going to cover it. You kind of want to bring it to a boil. And then cover it and let it cook for 14 minutes. That's going to, kind of like a rice pilaf, the rice is going to all hydrate and soak up all this liquid and become beautiful saffron rice. And then we're going to do what's called mantecada. You put a couple tablespoons of butter in, and then we're going to stir in the last few minutes grated Parmesan cheese, and then I'm going to taste it and see if it's still a little crunchy to the tooth, which they would say al dente. I'll add a little more water and stirring it, and that's going to then release the starch on the outside of the rice, and you have risotto. Anybody can make risotto. Okay? So I'm just going to wait until this, make sure and my water was already kind of hot. It wasn't boiling. So it should come back to a boil really quickly. Just be a couple minutes. Let's see. Hi. Hi, Marilyn. Nice to see you. Marilyn just moved to Italy. To Chiavari, I think, where my husband's grandmother was from. I love Chiavari. It's one of my favorite towns. Okay, so it's just after, it's what, 6:17 or something like that. So we're going to give it 15 minutes. My octopus should take 20. So let me just talk about these other things that I made so I can show you. I was really lucky. Oh, ciao, Gabriella. Very nice. Thank you so much. Gabriella Becchina is my friend in Sicily. Oh, look. See, I always have her with me. This is, you guys can get this in America. This is olio verde, and this is the one my husband won't live without. Her father's crazy. He pressed their lemons in with their olives, those giant Castelvetrano olives. He was the guy who created making those into oil. And then he puts the zest of the lemons in with the olives when he crushes it. That's really crazy. Oh, thanks for the mention, yeah. Well, I'm telling you, I've got a 5-liter tin underneath here, and we just keep filling up this one. Because you don't really want to leave a clear glass out in the sun very much. So we just leave out like a little half bottle that we use all the time. And I mostly use this on salads. But you can also just drizzle it. It's beautiful on fish. I love it on asparagus. It's great on anything. So that's always in my my pantry. I know somebody asked me the other day to show my kitchen, but I'll show you some of my pantry. Another, I love crazy food, people. This is my balsamic vinegar that I treat myself to. Oh my God, yeah. And it's from San Giacomo, and I know this is also available in America. And this is from the other town, not Modena, that makes balsamic vinegar. This is from Reggio Emilia, from my friend Andrea Bezzecchi. And the silver label, they have a red, like lobster color, they call it silver, and then gold. And it kind of represents the ages of and the depth of flavor of the balsamics. And I adore this one. So if you're coming to Italy, look for this. It's like half the price that it is in America, but it's always cheaper to buy it in America than it is to buy an airplane ticket, right? So that's another one of my favorite things I use. Okay, so I was going to tell you about, oops, okay, that's up. Turn that down to low now because it was really steaming, okay? The rice is boiling. But these little sweet and sour onions, I can buy these already cleaned. So I'm really spoiled rotten. And these are such an easy recipe. You just, I put, hi Gabriele, Manicaretti, oh, Manicaretti.com, yeah. Manicaretti is a distributor that represents the Olio Verde, and there's also a shop, I think it's called the Pasta Shop in Oakland, and they have all them, they're the Manicaretti shop, really, and then they sell all over the place, and there's also online ordering. But these little onions come clean, and I just cover them with water, and I put salt, olive oil, vinegar, and sugar, and the chili peppers, those little trip-to-hell chili peppers. I think they're called bird's eye chili at home. And you just cover and cook till tender. And then as the water starts to evaporate, the sugar will start to caramelize, and you want to start to taste for the balance between the sugar and vinegar, and just tweak it there. So these are really nice, and I love them room temperature too. And then the peas, Florentine style. I think we talked about this when I did the spinach the other day. Like veal Florentine is going to have peas, so we're getting ready for Easter, and this is my favorite pea recipe. Is I used green garlic, but you could just use regular garlic. Saute it in olive oil. And I sauteed it with pancetta, little pancetta strips, which is not bacon, it's not smoked, but whatever. And or you could use ham, cooked ham. And then you, I shelled the peas and added fresh peas, and then you cover them with water, add salt, and you cook till tender. And I really adore the broth that's in here. So if I was going to make like a soup out of this, I could puree these and make a beautiful pea soup, which is really, really nice. But my husband said, oh, I really want peas for Easter, but I bought them now because we're going to eat them right away. I bought little baby lamb chops. Oh, maybe I'll show you those too. They're really cute. Waste our little time here while we're cooking. So lamb chops in Italy are from the young, always from young, tiny, just born lambs. So they're like this. Look at this. This is the lamb chop itself. It's like a little T-bone steak, and then this was the rib up the rib cage. So these lambs are small. They fold them back down, and then we do a thing that's called scottadito. We're just going to either grill these or oven roast them with olive oil. I do rosemary, sage, and garlic rub, and squeeze a lemon. And they're called scottadito, burn your fingers, because when you pick up little bones with your fingers, you burn yourself while you're eating them. So that's what we're going to have with peas tomorrow. Okay, so we're going to watch this. I'm going to check on my octopus right now, just to make sure. Oh, they're already so pretty. Look how cute they are. See how tiny they get? And they change color. And they're giving off this, the bottom here is just covered with broth. So I'm going to cover these back up again. Octopus is traditionally served with potatoes. Okay. Hi, Alan. You're doing a good job. 80 years of eating and cooking. Where do you live, Alan? Thanks for stopping by here. Let me get my Parmesan cheese too. So I'll just prep the cheese while we're waiting. When the rice gets closer to being done, I'm going to add the tips back in so that they'll steam in there. Okay, I could probably even do that now. We're about halfway through. I'm not going to stir it. I'm just going to put those into steam. Octopus is doing good. So welcome to anybody who's new with us. This is the rind of the Parmesan cheese. And I was explaining the other day in my other videos, which you can see if you go to, I'm putting them on YouTube. The outside part of the cheese is the firmer part where the whole wheel is soaked in a saltwater bath. So it gets really dry on the outside and more flavorful. So I'm going to do about a couple tablespoons of grated cheese. I tend I live here so I can get what I want, but I tend to buy at least 2-year-old, 24-month-old Parmesan cheese. It's a little bit drier and has really good flavor. And then what we do is when we cut the wedge that we get, we save the inside point, which is the less salty part, and we eat that. So usually after a meal, we'll have fruit and cheese as our kind of end of our meal or dessert. So a nice chunk of Parmesan cheese too, a nice shard, is really good. Let me just show you. I have another piece right here. As an appetizer for a party, you really don't have to work very much. My mother-in-law always said, spend more time shopping and less time cooking, so when you have good ingredients, you don't need to do anything. So I would just take this beautiful 24-month-old Parmesan cheese with my 25-year-old balsamic vinegar. Can you see how slow it's pouring? And just put like 2 or 3 drops there. Look at that. Okay? And that's an appetizer. This is really beautiful. I'll just take care of that for you. A good balsamic vinegar is almost like a port. Oh, it's so good. It's caramelized grape juice. And then it's aged in barrels. So I have a story on my website about Andrea. I went with him one day. We picked up the grape juice. He put it on to boil. We went out to dinner. I spent the night, came back the next day. And this grape juice had been all concentrated down. And then he has giant wooden barrels. A big one you put it in first is called the Badessa, the woman of the abbey. And then they have a series of barrels from like this big down to this big. And every year, you would fill all the barrels the first year. And then through evaporation, they keep at the top, there's a little bung hole with a little linen napkin and a cork. They would keep it sometimes the cork off. And there's natural evaporation. It's in a room with no insulation. So it suffers the heat of the summer and the cold of the winter. And there's evaporation. And at the end of the year, you take what's in number 2, you need to fill number 1, 3 to fill number 2, 4 to fill number 3. And there's usually 5 to 7 barrels. And it's usually a different set of wood. So you're going to get cherry, chestnut, oak, beech. Cherry, chestnut, oak, beech. I can't remember right now. But they get the flavor of the wood. Andrea also has some juniper wood, which his father did, which is really good. On cherry, sometimes cherry wood. And after 12 years of doing that, they can take what's in the smallest barrel and bottle it, and that's traditional balsamic vinegar. So mostly what we get in the grocery stores is caramelized cooked down grape juice with caramelized sugar and vinegar added to it. So there's no vinegar in balsamic vinegar. I'm hearing my stuff making noise right now, so let me just check things. Oh, can you see? All the water's gone on this now. That was really quick. Okay, I'm going to stir it. Let me just look. So what was that? We put it at 17 past, and it's 27, so that seems like 10 minutes. It may need a little more cooking. Can you see this? Put my hand here, maybe. I'm going to taste one of these little kernels. They're done. It's so saffrony, it's beautiful. And I'm going to turn off the heat, add the Parmesan cheese. I'm going to add a little bit of butter. And this is called, it's a verb, manticare. It helps give the creaminess to your risotto. So this now is the only part you have to sit and stir. And this is going to give me that creaminess of the rice. This is also a good trick when you're making arancini. We were just in Sicily. Oh, ciao Holly, thank you. They do the risotto the same way, but they put a little sliced white onion in it and just boil it without sauteing. So it's just really like a pilaf. I think I want a little more creaminess, so I'm going to add a little more water. Not for cooking, but for moisture. I think people are always surprised at the actual consistency. Hi Karen. Yeah, we always use unsalted butter here. The Parmesan cheese gives you enough salt. And I did add salt to the saffron water. This is beautiful, easy. It couldn't be any easier, really. It's perfect. Okay. Okay, let me turn this out on my plate now. So I think if you're going to serve this in America, a risotto can be a one-course meal. It's going to be so rich. And it would be lovely, like I think, with prawns or scallops on top of it. Just put the little asparagus on top. Get ready for this little photo op, right? Here's another asparagus tip. There you go. Grilled asparagus would also be nice as a garnish on this. I do them with and then we'll just give a little more Parmesan cheese around the edges. One of the most famous chefs in Italy. Did you ever add wine to risotto? Yeah, I've done a red wine risotto where I don't use any water whatsoever. Use all red wine. Let me check now my octopus. I hear it spitting. Same thing now. It needs a little more water. You want to add. I didn't add any water at all before. So now I can hear the liquid's gone. So I add a little water to that. I've also done the octopus where when it gets to this point I splash it with the red wine. So look, these are just so beautiful now. Those are almost done. Sometimes, talking about wine and risotto, if I was going to make a wine-flavored risotto, like if you want to make one and they call them like, you know, risotto alla champagne, risotto a Barolo or something like that, your first splash is supposed to be of the wine and the last splash of wine. So they do that often with champagne, which then gives you, then they would use broth often, so it's a very much richer, I think, risotto. Some people also say when you saute the rice first, they splash it with the rice. That kind of like shocks it and helps it release the starches or something. That there's like a chemical reaction. So here's my beautiful saffron asparagus risotto. So that's our dinner tonight. Now if you ever have leftover risotto, because this is not overcooked, I can actually put this in a little skillet and warm it up later with a little liquid. And it's beautiful. You can also, like I said, let this go cold, and that would be really good for making arancini. We never throw anything away, so we like leftovers. So the risotto, could make the arancini risotto balls. Sometimes if I don't want to go all the trouble of that, I'll just make like a little patty, breadcrumb them, maybe a little cube of mozzarella cheese on the inside. It's so simple for an appetizer, and then you don't have, you know, the giant risotto balls. Sometimes people actually make them huge, which is kind of the big joke size, like those giant cannoli. Ciao, Bill. Thanks for stopping by. I like the small bite-sized risotto balls. And I'd rather have 2 of those than to have one really big one. And in Sicily, it's street food. So you go to a bar and you actually eat it with your hands. Holly, do you use the head of the octo? Yeah, it's there. It's cleaned out, and I like to then slice it up. One thing I've never made, which I'd like to try to make, is the carpaccio of octopus, where they boil them first, and then they cut them up in pieces and put it in a saran wrap, wrap them in saran wrap, and pack it into a PVC tube, about that big, and they let it gel overnight. It sits overnight, and the octopus itself has this natural gelatin, and so it makes like a head cheese of octopus. And then you slice it paper thin, and it makes a beautiful presentation. And yeah, you cut up the legs, you put the legs in whole, and you cut up the head pieces and throw them in there. And it's really beautiful. So let me just check again. I think this is really almost done. They're done when the legs become really, really tender, and you could just separate them. Let me get my knife. Oh, yeah. So tender. I'm just going to let that go a little bit more because I added that extra liquid, and I really like my liquid to be dense there. I'm going to turn it back up to high. So what? You guys came here at 6. At 6:30, we already made 2 things. Ciao, Charlene. Hi. Thanks for stopping by. So, for those of you, a lot of you I know have my cookbook already. There's so many things that you can make that don't take forever that are really good and fabulous. So, to me, it's all about timing in the kitchen. Let me get a plate now to show you my octopus too. Everybody really liked this one. This is from Sicily, from a town, I can't remember the whole name, but Santo Stefano something or other, in Sicily. I'm a ceramic junkie. I try not to have, I don't have china. There's just the 2 of us, and we don't have a big house or a big kitchen, so we don't do huge dinner parties. When I did my cooking school, I had just simple tableware for 10 or 12 people. And I still have that, like these simple, I have black and white ones of these plates like that. And then I have a huge collection of bone ricordo plates. One day we'll talk about those. Where you go to a special restaurant and you eat a special dish, and then they give you a hand-painted plate to take home as a memory. That's really fun. So here, let me show you. So these, like I said, will be served tomorrow with, let me put the risotto out of the way, with boiled potatoes as like a salad. Oh, he's kind of cute just like this, don't you think so? I saw that horrible video where they were serving someone a live octopus. That was horrible. I would never do that, but this is actually kind of pretty as a presentation. They often here do calamari and peas. I bet octopus and peas would be really nice too. I'm going to move the Parmesan cheese. I want octopus and Parmesan. So what I tend to do is to cut them right along in between the dotted lines. And then I have these beautiful little octopus pieces. Okay. Just like that. I would cut even 3 pieces off and then divide them. And if you're going to make like a beautiful seafood salad, you would then cut these up into pieces and mix them with some sauteed calamari, some steamed mussels out of their shells. There's no end to what you could do with octopus. I once had, I went to pizza class in Rome with the famous pizza chef Gabriele Bonci. I think, is he opening up in Chicago next, or New York? I think Chicago. And he was working with a shop that was doing breads. And they did a potato bread and then served a boiled octopus and boiled and grilled octopus as the filling. That was really nice. Instead of just boiled potatoes. See, so these are, again, the strips of the head. Nice and tender. I could have added salt. I think I would have liked salt with this. Another recipe they do when they're in Naples is called alla Lusciana, and they do the garlic, olive oil, chili pepper, and then they throw a can of tomatoes in and black olives, and that's really good. I'm just going to let the sauce reduce here a little bit. It makes a really nice broth. But it is really beautiful and rustic when it's cooked with the tomato sauce. Tomatoes are very acidic, so it kind of slows down the cooking. So it might take, you know, half an hour to 40 minutes for a small artichoke, or maybe even up to an hour for the larger ones, because it takes longer to cook everything in tomato sauce. Okay, I'm just going to cut this up, a couple more. So then what I would also do with these, it's really nice sometimes, is I'll do a bed of mashed potatoes, or like a bed of chickpea puree or fava bean puree, like a hummus kind of thing. And you could grill the octopus and then serve it on top with, I like salsa verde, which is capers, anchovies, parsley, olive oil. We usually serve that with boiled meat, so it's also really nice with boiled fish. So maybe I could pour this in something you could see, and I'll pour it in a glass. I always used to really love, like, when you got clam juice, you know, after the steamed clams. So you can see how rich this juice is. Blue glass is probably not a good choice. But it makes a really beautiful broth. And this would be a good base in any sort of a soup, or if I was going to do a pasta sauce too, I would do it with that. Okay. Hi, Becca. How are you? I think that's it. So thanks for stopping by. And I'll try to dream of what to do next. If you guys have any ideas, just leave me little comments. I'll see those later. And I'll give you a link for the non-stir risotto. And thank you very much for coming. It was fun. Ciao.